When I discovered Ethan's illegitimate child, he remained remarkably calm. He brought the mother and daughter before me and explained serenely, "It is not her fault, it is all because I could not bear to part with the child." I approached, gently touching the child's face, and smiled, indicating that I did not mind. However, the next day, Ethan initiated a divorce proposal to me. "They need a place to live, so the house will not be given to you, but all the assets under my name will be yours. If you have no objections, just sign it." Thinking of my twin sons, I could not help but sigh and quickly rejected the agreement. Why divorce? I can turn a blind eye and absolutely will not harm them. Whether you come home or not is fine, I will not say a word. After all, in this era of rampant materialism, who has not committed errors driven by uncontrollable emotions? Even I have made egregious mistakes myself, how could I blame Ethan? My reaction greatly surprised Ethan. This was an illegitimate child, yet I was not angry at all. When had I become so magnanimous? Ethan had always been fond of children, but in the year we married, my modeling career was in its fervent ascent. Ethan did not fully support my work and repeatedly hoped I would retire from the industry to focus on being a dutiful wife and mother at home. However, I delayed year after year, never fulfilling his wish. Because of this, we argued repeatedly. Eventually, our feelings faded, and our hearts grew weary. Ethan stopped urging me to become a full-time housewife and secretly found someone outside to bear his illegitimate child. Indeed, a marriage without children to connect concerns and expectations would gradually become as stagnant as a pool of dead water, even the arguments fading away. Thus, seeking excitement became justifiable. However, divorce would be too damaging. "Ethan, we have been married for 7 years, your company's stock price is stable, and my career is steadily rising. If we divorce, everything will be disrupted, perhaps even starting over from scratch. Isn't the cost too great?" The cost was undoubtedly substantial. Once divorced, it would involve asset division, inevitably affecting the company, and disrupting the balance between the Jiang and Zhou families, which would be even more detrimental to the company's future development. Ethan naturally understood the pros and cons, so he hesitated. "But not divorcing would be unfair to you." I'd said, "Now you know it's unfair to me? Then why did you pull down someone else's pants in the first place?" Ethan displeasedly turned his head away. "We were mutually in love, and she was willing to bear a child for me. I cannot betray her." All right, I know, I won't break up the lovebirds. Encountering true love after marriage is something normal people find hard to control. I appeared entirely magnanimous, rest assured. "I keep my word and will definitely not harm them, but you need to buy a new house, so you don't have to report back here." Ethan looked at me skeptically. "Clara, are you really not angry?" I clenched my fist, pretending to hit him. How could I not be angry? "You've cuckolded me, but if I get sick from anger with no one to replace me, why bother? It's better to fulfill others' wishes." Having been a petty woman for over 20 years, Ethan naturally did not believe I had changed so quickly. Thus, he temporarily withdrew the divorce proposal and decided to test me. For several consecutive days, he did not return home but instead carried bags to rush into Nina's arms. Fearing I might not know, he even shared their family of three's daily life with me in real time, wanting to see if I truly did not mind. Truthfully, my heart had no ripples. Instead, I greatly enjoyed this rare freedom. The 500-square-meter villa was my vast domain for free soaring. I lay comfortably under the sunlight, recalling 2 years ago today. At that time, Ethan was very busy, going on business trips for 10 days or half a month at a time. Yet I thought about how to ease our marital emotions, initially always taking the initiative to cling to him. But he was perfunctory in attitude and always found excuses to evade me. At that time, I knew Ethan had someone outside. Later, as expected, his business trip opportunities increased, and the durations grew longer, to the point where he did not even notice that I had given birth to twins with someone else. Thinking of this, my phone vibrated. "When exactly are you coming back? Even if I have no status, don't the children deserve a mother's love? Since you disdain us three so much, I'll take them and disappear, so you'll never see us again." A handsome face immediately emerged in my mind, making me helplessly stroke my forehead. I hate it most when others threaten me. Initially, he threatened me with his life to give birth to the children, and now he's playing this trick again. I shook my head. So noisy, just lie in the blacklist. Whether man or children, no one can obstruct my pursuit of freedom. The next day, I returned to the studio to teach classes. Since becoming pregnant 2 years ago, I stopped performing on stage and shifted to behind-the-scenes training of newcomers. Due to my reputation, many new students enrolled every day. But as soon as I entered the company, I noticed Nina. Seeing me enter, she immediately panicked and shifted her gaze, then lowered her head, trying to reduce her presence. I could not help but curl my lips, somewhat surprised. After all, it was rare for someone of her status to come out for body training. Moreover, she was the first woman since our marriage whom Ethan actively brought home. With this honor, she really had no need to use these external means to retain Ethan's heart. Moreover, thinking of Ethan's protective demeanor that day, I could almost confirm they were truly in love. Thus, I nodded and called Nina over. "Are you here to learn body shaping from me?" Her eyes evaded, she dawdled to me, her voice so low I could not hear. "No, Teacher Clara, I want to talk to you." I turned to pour myself a cup of tea. I sipped the tea leisurely, not initiating conversation. Nina secretly glanced at me several times and finally stammered, "Teacher Clara, I'm sorry to you, I shouldn't have fallen in love with Ahan and destroyed your family." She wiped tears while explaining, "At that time I insisted on breaking up, but Ahan threatened suicide, not letting me leave, and wanted me to bear his child. But you really loved him and couldn't bear to leave, so you secretly enjoyed the thrill of the affair behind my back until the child was born, and you felt you needed to grasp something, right?" Nina suddenly lifted her head, looking at me in disbelief as I voiced her inner thoughts. Tears welled in her eyes, evoking pity. I sighed lightly and continued her lines, "So you hope I agree to the divorce to fulfill you too, right?" Probably feeling I was too direct, she eagerly tried to explain, "Sorry, Teacher Clara, I didn't want this either, but the child needs a complete family." "Teacher Clara, why not hit or scold me? As long as you don't make things difficult for us, I'll do anything you want." I calmly nodded and smiled, "All right, I understand, I'll discuss it properly with Ethan." "Thank you, Teacher Clara." Saying that, she bowed 90 degrees to me. But discovering I had no intention of politeness, she was stunned for a moment. I glanced at the wall clock, it was time for class. Just as I was about to bid Nina farewell, 2 men entered the door simultaneously. I saw Ethan politely greeting the man opposite. "President Adrian, long time no see, why are you here? Is your girlfriend taking classes here too?" Actually, she could not be considered a girlfriend, at most, a bed partner. Adrian nodded slightly, then glanced at me. "Yes, I'm here for my girlfriend. I heard there's a particularly skilled body shaping teacher here, can you introduce me?" "Then you've asked the right person." Ethan proceeded to introduce me to Adrian. "Clara is that exceptionally skilled body shaping teacher, many come admiringly." I showed a professional smile. Adrian sidelong glanced at me, smiling superficially. "Is that so? What a coincidence, Teacher Clara, can we add each other on Facebook?" Seeing me unmoving, Ethan reminded, "Clara, this is President Adrian of Shangnan Group, entertain him well, don't offend." I took out my work phone, and opened my work account. Adrian scanned the code, seeming to see my professional profile. He frowned. I pretended not to notice. Who was it that swore yesterday never to see me again? I glanced at Nina holding Ethan's arm and turned to leave. Midway through the class, a colleague curiously approached me. "Teacher Clara, is that President Adrian waiting for you? Why hasn't he left?" I looked at the man leaning against the wall fiddling with a lighter, somewhat annoyed. It seemed I could not avoid it today. Seeming to notice my gaze, he indifferently looked up, fearlessly meeting my eyes. Instead, it made me somewhat embarrassed. I lowered my eyelids and explained to others, "Who knows? Probably idle with nowhere to go." After class, I left through the back door as usual. At the corner, Adrian suddenly grabbed me and pulled me over. Just like the scene when he stopped me from doing something foolish. He kept a cold face throughout, silent. I suddenly recalled Ethan's words not to offend him, so I offered no resistance as he dragged me to the car. As soon as the car door closed, Adrian's presence overwhelmed me. "You're truly heartless. Just a few words and you block me, even fooling me with a work account?" His tone was icy, his actions forceful. He pinned my hands and left retaliatory marks on my lips and neck. After gnawing for a full 5 minutes, Adrian freed one hand to grip the steering wheel and drive away. On the main road, we found Ethan and Nina not far, sweetly eating at a roadside stall. Adrian's temper flared, he deliberately honked several times and lowered the window. "We're both doing bad things, why can he openly stroll with his mistress, while you have to sneak around?" He parked the car only 2 meters from Ethan and them, lowering his head to fiercely gnaw at me. "Tell me, if Ethan sees this, won't you two divorce? Or, shall we call him over and have a good talk among the 3 of us?" My intense panting escaped through the window. Adrian was not one to give up easily, especially when unhappy, without enough sweetener, don't expect to coax him. So I initiatively met his lips, slowly reclined the seat, and embraced him with hands and feet. As the window rose, I saw Ethan turn back to look this way. "What are you looking at?" Nina, holding his arm, followed his gaze toward the Rolls-Royce. Ethan shook his head but thoughtfully glanced at the slightly shaking luxury car. I sighed in relief, glad Ethan was not too familiar with Adrian and had not seen his luxury cars. Otherwise, if he caught this scene, I would have 10 mouths and still couldn't explain. Adrian noticed my distraction and applied force in his actions. Afterward, Adrian contentedly adjusted his tie. He held me in his arms, chin resting on my nape. "Why not divorce when he treats you like that? Do you still love him, thinking he'll change his mind?" Do I still love him? Of course not, otherwise, I wouldn't watch him hold another woman without reaction. I just think divorce has no meaning. He loosened his hold slightly. How can it have no meaning? After divorce, you can legitimately be with me. I broke free and sat in the passenger seat. Then what? The dignified President Adrian marrying a divorced woman with such big children, aren't you afraid of public opinion affecting your reputation and company's future? Adrian pursed his thin lips, eyes slightly darkened. You think I care about these? I straightened my clothes, preparing to get out. You may not care, but your parents do, your group's shareholders do, and I do too. He grabbed my hand pulling the door, eyes like swords. So, you plan to let me raise the children anonymously for life? I laughed. President Adrian, without spending a penny on bride price, someone bore you twin sons. Don't act pitiful after gaining benefits, okay? Adrian was choked, flung me back to the seat, and floored the accelerator back to his home. He first took me to see the sleeping sons, then dragged me back to his room. This is our bridal chamber, give me a definite answer, when will you move in? I honestly shook my head, unable to give any answer. Adrian irritably tugged his collar, the next second pressing over me. It's just a divorce, is it that hard? I did not respond. Will you divorce or not? He bit me with each question. I continued shaking my head. He got angry, got up, grabbed his phone, and sent Ethan a photo. It was me secretly photographed crying emotionally. Mr. Zhou, since you don't love her, hurry and divorce, it's so late, look how sadly she's crying. Adrian spoke while unfastening his watch. Ethan, probably not busy, replied quickly, so late, why is President Adrian still with her? Thanks for your concern, President Adrian, I'll handle it soon. Adrian snorted coldly, she's crying so sadly, it seems she doesn't want to divorce you. Saying that, he tossed the phone, stripped his clothes, and pressed over again. This time, Ethan was silent for a long time, until Adrian had done dozens of push-ups, his hoarse voice came. Thanks for caring about our private matters, President Adrian, but emotions can't be forced, the child is innocent, I must take responsibility for the mother and daughter. So you choose to hurt Clara, right? Adrian's voice was steady, like a husband advocating for his wife. This questioning on my behalf made Ethan sense something wrong. He immediately asked, "President Adrian, how is Clara now?" Adrian lowered his eyes, fingertips gently stroking my flushed cheek. "She's had too much to drink, her mood is bad." Ethan pondered, "Trouble President Adrian to help comfort her, it's I who wronged her." Adrian turned off the phone and murmured in my ear, "Heard that? He doesn't love you anymore and even asks me to comfort you well. Why keep such a man? Still unwilling to divorce?" Under his repeated impacts, my psychological defenses loosened. Perhaps letting go of others is actually letting go of oneself. Rather than holding on to a meaningless corpse of love making everyone suffer, better to break free from all constraints and pursue true freedom. In emotional confusion, I decided to talk properly with Ethan. It was noon the next day when Adrian sent me home. Due to excessive fatigue, my head remained dizzy. I poured a glass of milk, sat in the living room sipping slowly. The house was vast, and my heart was calm. The willingness to agree to divorce became increasingly clear. Unknowing how long I sat, sounds came from the door. Ethan actually returned. This was the first time he came home after breaking that window paper. "Let's talk again, Clara." I put down the milk, patted the sofa beside me, signaling him to sit. "What do you want to talk about? Can you agree to divorce? As for the company impacts you mentioned, I can disregard them. After all, she bore my child. If I wrong the mother and daughter for those illusory reputations, I don't deserve to be a man. Rest assured, I've made the maximum concessions on assets. I'll bear the curses after announcement, and handle parents' side, without troubling you." Ethan appeared very eager, as if a pause would get my refusal. I gazed steadily at him, my sight piercing our 7 years. The one who vowed to protect me for life now begged me to let him marry another. I was not sad, just somewhat wistful. "All right. I agree to divorce." "Are you serious?" Ethan excitedly confirmed. I nodded, leisurely flipping my phone. After a while, I pulled up our dating photo and handed it to him. "Is your current mood as excited as 7 years ago after successful proposal? I remember you said you'd love only me this lifetime, but only 7 years, and you ask for divorce, so, what's the meaning of marrying and divorcing and marrying?" "Ethan, people are changeable, true hearts even more fleeting, your life is long, can you guarantee Nina is your ultimate goal?" Ethan glanced at the photo and quickly averted his gaze. He turned sideways, expression unnatural. "Sorry, I'm also for the child." I put away the phone and stood. "So you're blaming me for not bearing you a child? I remember in the first 3 years of marriage, your mom urged me daily to have children. Back then you were clearly on my side. How did it become our divorce reason? In the end, it's your heart that wavered. Ethan, this isn't my fault." Ethan avoided my gaze, seemingly guilty. I believed he knew well that in reaching this point, his responsibility far exceeded mine. I kept my word and signed on the spot. Due to the divorce cooling-off period limit, we couldn't immediately get the certificate. But Ethan completely moved out, not leaving even a hair. However, before a few quiet days, Adrian somehow heard of my divorce and came daily to harass. Impossible to drive away, very annoying. On the 12th day after signing, I heard major news. When Nina took the daughter out, someone maliciously pushed them down, the child bumped her head, Nina sprained her ankle. Ethan anxiously sent them to hospital and unusually returned to find me at night. He had a livid face. I roughly guessed his intent. "You don't think I hired someone to deal with Nina, do you? Isn't it?" Ethan stepped forward, face terrifyingly grim. "Clara, I overestimated you. I really thought you'd let go so readily, but you actually targeted the child. You disgust me." I was stunned for a second, heart as if vigorously needed, even breathing with dull pain. "I've already signed, why would I do this superfluous thing? In your heart, am I such a villain?" Ethan stared at me, face with undisguised disgust and disdain. "Because you're unwilling. Unwilling that the superior life you've enjoyed most of your life is taken by others. Ethan looked so self-reproachful and guilty, for long failing to protect his loved one. Clara, I've given you everything, only they remain, please don't touch them, okay? If you have resentment, directed at me, I'll be your ox and horse, as long as you spare them. Ethan, the ones not sparing them are themselves. I pointed to the surveillance video I just obtained. Open your eyes and see how your good lover cares for the child. In the video, Nina held the 2-month daughter strolling in the park. In the frame, a mother pushing a stroller stopped roadside playing phone. Nina approached and spoke, "This baby is pitiful, with a mom like you, afraid won't grow up." The other was instantly enraged and pushed Nina down. This scene made Ethan pale, staring tightly at the screen, lips moving but speechless. "Now, do you still think it's a play I arranged?" Seeing your surprised face, I sighed lightly. "It seems you hoped I was the villain?" Ethan silently lit a cigarette and shook his head. "A bit hard to accept this psychological gap, right? You thought you found a gentle and virtuous good woman, but in fact, she uses your treasured child as a bargaining chip, daring to provoke others yet not knowing to avoid risks for the child. Ethan, is this the happiness you pursue at all costs?" Ethan opened his mouth to defend. She just expressed wrongly, her heart is good." I smiled. "That's unrelated to me, it's your choice, but we're divorced, I hope you don't involve me anymore." Ethan slowly exhaled smoke rings. "Sorry, I was too impulsive." I stopped smiling. "You were indeed impulsive. In the end, it's your flamboyant divorce behavior that gave her the confidence to act recklessly. Entering luxury communities daily, about to become a tycoon's wife, the class change naturally alters her thoughts. Think, when you first met her, would she be so aggressive? If she's truly pure and good, she'll surely change, right?" Ethan fiercely inhaled the last puff, stomped the butt. "I know what to do, it's late, I should go." I waved, indicating no need to see off. Ethan walked to the entrance, turned back looking at me, hesitant to speak. "Clara, you've really changed a lot. Before, you couldn't tolerate a grain of sand in your eye, now cuckolded and wronged, you're indifferent. I guess you stopped loving me long ago." I tugged my mouth. "If I say no, you probably won't believe, if yes, you'll be heartbroken." I stood and walked toward Ethan. "Actually, love is fleeting, now you can give up everything for her, but remember? 7 years ago, you centered on me, could abandon all for me. So what am I clinging to? Letting go is the best fulfillment for each other, isn't it?" Ethan said no more, his figure quickly vanishing into the night. They say men don't cherish after obtaining. Before, I didn't believe, but after Nina's incident, I did. Ethan started messaging me daily, like when he pursued me upon first meeting. Beautiful scenery, delicious food, interesting or boring people and things, he photographed and told me. Before, Ethan said my appearance amazed his entire dim youth, so years later recalling still full of color. So after meeting Nina, his extinguished throbs reactivated, he could finally replace his former dim self, to newly possess such vivid love. Yet after possessing, found it bland, and reminisced about me. He fulfilled his regrets, but what about me? When he loved me, he wanted me close, when not, he cast me away. Why should I be his dispensable background? I blocked Ethan, listed the current house for sale, and rented a single apartment near the company. In the first few days, my phone had over a dozen missed calls and stranger messages daily. I knew who it was, so ignored. When Adrian came and missed me, thinking I was hiding again, he squatted before my studio for 3 days to learn my new address. On the day the cooling period ended, he messaged congratulations early. But I waited half a day at the Civil Affairs Bureau, Ethan never appeared. Until staff off work, Ethan texted his daughter suddenly had high fever and hospitalized. Unexpectedly at night, Ethan appeared at my studio door. I was puzzled, opening with telling him to go back and accompany his daughter more. With nanny and birth mom, I as a man can't help much. Can nanny and dad be the same? I smiled. Parents loving each other is the best catalyst for child's healthy growth. Ethan silently handed me a milk tea. I set it aside, not drinking until off work. On the way home, Ethan followed behind. In the lamplight shadow, he suddenly approached, asking if I could accompany him for a night. My first reaction was to tell him to find Nina. Pausing, I recalled the other just gave birth not long, can't do intense exercise yet. It was hard for Ethan, holding back so long, finally seeking me. But I was already ex-wife, such things should find his true love. I clearly refused and proposed to get the certificate tomorrow, then part ways. Ethan frowned. Clara, I remember you always pleased me in this aspect, don't you have needs now? Of course I do, but they've been satisfied by someone else long ago. Don't mention past things, if you're really pent up, find your former assistant. After all, it was his first extramarital affair in life, bound to have freshness. Ethan's face paled, looking at me incredulously. You know? I laughed. Of course, you don't think you did it seamlessly? That was the 3rd year of marriage, first time I saw Ethan's assistant send him ambiguous messages, felt the sky collapsed. At that time I was still love-brained, thinking if a man strayed in marriage, it must be I didn't do well enough, not matching him. So I exercised diligently, skincare well, and excelled in career. In less than a year, I forced myself into a beautiful and sassy strong woman. But Ethan's eyes had no amazement, just repeatedly urging me to rest well, mind my health. After that, he no longer came home on time and precisely seized every business trip opportunity. From interprovincial to international, from a week to a year. Yet each trip, he appeared reluctant, holding me with teary eyes, saying not to worry. Fearing my loneliness at home, initially he chatted half an hour nightly. But so what? It didn't affect his embracing left and right outside. But then I didn't understand why, despite my efforts to keep up, he reacted flatly, even changing ambiguous objects one after another. I remember on my birthday, I waited from day to night, Ethan had no indication. In bad mood, I went alone to bar to get drunk. Somehow attracted Adrian. At that time I was almost drunk, but vaguely remembered Adrian's company had cooperation with Ethan. So I took the opportunity to question why he made Ethan travel, and for so long. I cried while speaking, Adrian like a tree, always silent. Suddenly lost interest, turned to flirt with the handsome guy beside. My looks not bad, facing prey, the guy ecstatic, chatted a bit and wanted to take me to hotel. I didn't refuse, but mind felt nauseous for a moment. So the feeling of depravity is this unbearable. But in this environment, have to slowly endure that mental barrier. Staggering, I followed the guy to car, Adrian chased up, pulled me back. Miss Jiang, do you know what you're doing? He grim-faced, fiercely punched the guy, stuffed me into his car. Pushed by him, my head dizzy, couldn't help muttering, why hit my handsome guy? How much did you drink? Adrian frowned, where do you live? I'll send you back? No need. I waved, no need you manage, you go. I myself, can. Adrian said no more, but called assistant to bring sobering soup. Seeing him lean on car front, broad shoulders narrow waist, my heart suddenly surged with impulse like fermentation. Grabbing his hand, eyes hazy, hey, open door, I want to, find my handsome guy. Adrian turned, incredulously, Clara, do you know what you're saying? You're married? Heh. Yes, I'm married. Mine seemed clear for a second, I stared asking back, married can't cheat, right? But why can he casually find women? Adrian heard who this he was. He pursed lips, suggested, your husband cheating is his poor character, you should end this relationship, not become as bad as him. Are you advising divorce? Why? He hurt me, still want me to laugh it off? I won't divorce, I want him to taste betrayal too. He blocked the door not letting me out, I found him obstructive, kicked, you're with Ethan, right? Get away. Don't waste my time. I wanted to find that guy to continue spark, but after inexplicable slap, he slipped faster than rabbit. Unhappily glared at Adrian, wobbling off car toward home. Adrian worriedly followed. Why follow? You drove away my encounter, want to compensate? Adrian paused, didn't continue following, but didn't allow walking. Get in, I'll send you to hotel. Tormented by alcohol, drowsy, feet like on cotton, walked 2 steps and fell before Adrian. Out of reflex, I pulled down his pants. But I didn't stop, instead groped up his thigh. Adrian firmly pressed my hand. Aren't you sending me home? Then accompany me one night. Adrian said nothing, but hand gradually loosened. He bent to carry me into car, drove to nearest hotel. Alcohol surging, body hot and restless. I hugged Adrian's neck, eagerly demanding. Before entering room, I covered his lips. Adrian no longer the calm overbearing CEO, under my entanglement, he slowly sank. This was originally a common accident, adults, sober should part ways. But Adrian didn't think so. Since you and Ethan both cheated, let's part amicably. Tell me when divorce done, I'll take responsibility. I found it absurdly laughable. If every accidental romance required responsibility, how many families would be broken? Moreover, Ethan erred first, I just followed suit, now even, the superficial harmony facade must continue. Adrian stung, so, last night no matter which man, you wouldn't refuse? I said bluntly, yes. I was for seeking thrill, incidentally discussed Ethan, who it was doesn't matter. Adrian stiffened, face gradually ugly. So treat this as never happened, no need to responsible for me. Adrian's atmosphere oppressive, eyes seeming anger surging. I didn't want confrontation, got up to pack and leave. Adrian endured seconds, suddenly rushed from behind to hug me. Since no responsibility, then, don't waste opportunity. I inwardly cursed bastard, body heavily pressed down. After, Adrian came weakly. After intimacy, left cold-faced, no more advising. Until one time after, I rushed to toilet vomiting fiercely. He noticed something wrong. Learning I was pregnant with twins, he fully committed. First hired private doctor for fetal stability and calming, then moved various beneficial supplements to my home. Pity I was no longer love-brained, wouldn't fall for a man's bit of warmth. Moreover, I hadn't divorced Ethan yet, how could I bear his children? But Adrian was truly mad. He threatened with pills, saying if I dare not want the children, he'd die on my bed, making me live in guilt forever. I didn't dare gamble with future, so reluctantly kept the children. Strangely, during my pregnancy, Ethan appeared rarely, even if occasionally said to return, soon got new trip. Before, I thought it was outside Vixen's tricks, later learned it was Adrian's doing. Hearing my words, Ethan stared stunned for long. His eyes so strange, as if truly knowing me this moment. Clara, you endured so long? Asking this, I clearly saw his slightly trembling hand back. I smiled indifferently, then what? Crying and fussing would only push you farther. Ethan's hanging hands trembled more, he slowly wanted to lift, but suddenly retracted upon touching me. I once imagined Ethan's guilty look countless times. But now real, I lost interest in appreciating. Go back. Your wife and daughter await. Coincidentally his phone rang, he sluggishly answered, mechanically responded, then looked at me like seeking help. The child has high fever again. I urged, then hurry to hospital. Ethan heard but didn't move. I ignored him, turned and closed the door. Got divorce certificate with Ethan 3 days later. Leaving civil affairs, he invited me to his daughter's 100-day banquet. Because child hospitalized often, heard experts say hold banquet to suppress shock. Our divorce didn't make big noise, but once banquet invites sent, attendees whispered. Some said I was a hen that doesn't lay eggs, shouldn't occupy Mrs. Joe position long ago. Others said Ethan was scumbag, just divorced and child so big, holding such big banquet, clearly not regarding me. But seeing Ethan hold child coming, all smiled congratulations. Hypocritical. I stood afar sneering. Adrian coming was unexpected. He gave child a longevity lock, pure gold. Not precious, but Ethan and Nina smiled blooming. Adrian walked to me, watching Ethan couple hold child away, tone heavy, have you really let go? Let go. He glanced at me, then when can our children be public like now? Whenever you want. But you unwilling to be their mom. This saying, I'm not unwilling, I'm forever their mom, I just unwilling to be your wife. Adrian frowned, why? Aren't you divorced from Ethan? No, why, just don't want marriage bondage, don't want to repeat mistakes. Adrian helplessly tugged mouth. I knew my ruthlessness hurt him. But he's free, I never forced him. Emotional world always one willing to hit, one to suffer. Actually all self-inflicted, blame no one. Ethan holding child circled back to us. During pleasantries, Ethan asked Adrian if want to hold child. Normally, guests should follow host's wish to take child. But Adrian didn't play by rules. He dodged the handed child, tone cool, no need, I have my own children. This said, whole venue quiet. Ethan like don't joke, laughed, President Adrian truly humorous, we haven't drunk your wedding wine yet, how have children? I'm serious, children in car watching cartoons. Adrian's gaze on my shadow, helplessly smiled, but their mom unwilling to let them out. They? Ethan shocked, how many children does President Adrian have? 2, twin boys. Adrian pretended not to see Ethan's flashing envy, gaze on Nina. Actually you're lucky, able to conceive Ethan's child, be acknowledged, and successfully ascend. Unlike me, children 2 years old, she still ignores me. This said, hard to tell if compliment, sarcasm, or self-mockery. Ironically the culprit unaware, he met Ethan's probing gaze, faintly smiled, Ethan, truthfully I envy you. The liked person willing to bear your child, and can openly hold banquet for her. Unlike me, failed to ascend, even children can't see light. Since words to this, simply borrow your venue, let my children share joy, mind? Ethan no suspicion, laughed extremely willing. Banquet hall door soon pushed open. 2 pink carved jade milk dolls slowly entered. They walked to Adrian, milky-voiced called Dad. Then turned, directly rushed to me, vying to shout. Mom. Mom. Then you fell dead silent. All gazes focused on me. I looked at 2 children, neither hug nor push. Ironically Adrian smugly laughed out. My son's great, not in vain my long diligent teaching. Surrounding gazes on me changed. I was actually the woman Adrian couldn't marry. But wasn't I just divorced from Ethan? How have 2-year-old sons? Could it be? I really unwilling to hear Adrian burst more reputation-damaging words, urgently pushed him, don't talk nonsense. Adrian stumbled, squinted smiled, then normally looked at me, is it too long no release? Such strength. Even if Ethan fool, at this step he understood. He handed daughter to Nina, staggered steps, voice trembling, Clara, are they really your sons? Truthfully, I didn't feel guilty, instead stood all day, quite tired. So I slightly nodded, turned to leave. He subconsciously grabbed my wrist. Leaving like this? Don't you need to explain clearly? I looked puzzled, what's to explain? Ethan panted, 2 years ago you had situation, do you deserve me? Bore others' children, what do you take me for? Of course as lover, if not you proposed, I wouldn't divorce you. I pried his hand, why so agitated, don't you have illegitimate child too? Hearing my justified retort, Ethan momentarily didn't know how to react. I smiled, continued, I changed heart 2 years ago, but you? In our marriage 3rd year ambiguous with assistance, till now 4 years. Did I argue or fuss with you? Ethan also laughed. A very ironic laugh. No wonder knowing my illegitimate child you reacted that way, turns out you derailed long ago. Pretended so magnanimous, unwilling divorce, Clara, you disgust me. Adrian beside listening, expressionless fanning flames. Ethan, as man don't be so petty, you're divorced, I'm still the humble 3rd, and you promoted outer chamber, have child, what's unsatisfactory? I'm much more miserable. Adrian. Ethan red-eyed roared, I've tolerated you long. Said and couldn't hold, swung fist rushing. Pity soon pulled by Adrian's bodyguards. Nina holding child frowned advising, Ethan, guest still here. Mind your words. I also turned to Adrian, so impulsively publicizing our mess, not afraid company affected? Anyway, you won't marry me, earning so much money, what's use? He indifferently spread hands, maybe gain your sympathy, alms a kiss. Thinking of his many assets, my worry indeed superfluous, self-mockingly tugged mouth, walked to door. Ethan broke free. Nina grabbed me again. Clara, stop. His tone trembled. You did such shameless thing, why leave us said. What do I do? Saying, he suddenly cried, changing, Clara, don't go, we can remarry, it's just illegitimate child, I'm willing to raise together. I turned back, you sure? Ethan, forced to wipe tears, nodded, of course. I couldn't help laugh. Then what about them? Words just fell. Adrian excitedly rushed to block. Give up. If she remarries, only with me, after all we have 2 children. Ethan's face ashen. He didn't expect I didn't refute. Silent moment, he suddenly laughed. Clara, you long wanted to remarry, right? Before unwilling divorce, later readily signed, long planned to marry Adrian. I frowned. Divorce you proposed, I just fulfilled wishes. Ethan madly shook head, no. Not I proposed, I regret. He suddenly roared, go. We remarry now. Nina holding child blocked him. Ethan, you're mad. Daughter just 100 days, you abandon us. Ethan, like deaf, forcefully pushed mother-daughter away. Infant immediately wailed. Nina, seeing, held child high, face ready for death. Ethan, I ask once more, remarry ex-wife or live well with me? Ethan, expression vacant, no answer. But Nina knew his answer. She suddenly held child steady, left don't regret and rushed outdoor. Ethan didn't chase. Instead his mom anxiously slapped thigh, said good horse no eat back grass, you still silly standing what? Quick go coaxing. But then, outside came fierce sharp collision sound, even banquet hall glass vibrating. Like realizing, Ethan bolted out. I also felt ominous, lifted leg followed Ethan. Accident scene tragic, but already surrounded by enthusiastic crowd. I stood outside crowd, secretly praying not the scene I thought. But then, a glaring light triggered my unease. It was sunlight reflecting on goldware. It was the longevity lock Adrian just gave. At this time Ethan also squeezed into crowd. When he saw the scene, suddenly like a tree drained of life, straightforward collapsed. Ambulance wailed coming. Traffic police also found accident truth. Originally Nina quietly stood roadside waiting car, but unknown why, her emotions suddenly agitated, actually holding child rushed to road. Due to inertia, child hit to air, flipped circles before falling. While Nina hit green belt, only light injury. Ethan refused driver's compensation, also refused to visit Nina, whole person like instantly aged 10 years. Company neglected management, soon declared bankruptcy. Adrian allocated some funds, acquired the company. He wanted me to hold highest shares, become new president. But I refused him. Along with refusing his proposal, I continued running my studio, occasionally visit children, also occasionally intimate with Adrian. Except that marriage paper, we know different from normal family. While Ethan after his daughter's death anniversary completely disappeared from my life. I often think, if no that accident, his daughter should become friends with my sons. Pity world no ifs. We forever can only look forward.